For me, I remember when I actually had the opportunity to direct for the first time. We were shooting Primary Colors with Mike Nichols, God rest him, and I was getting ready to go and do this little piece for Great Performances. I'd never done it before. I never directed before, and so I caught him outside, and I said, "So, Mike, what as actors, we're trained. It's like a dog trained not to get up on the sofa. You're never supposed to tell other actors what to do, But I never forgot what he told me. I said, how do you work with actors?" And he just said, "Love them.
Yeah.
Just love them. Just love them."
Hi, my name is Jenelle Riley. I'm an editor at Variety. I am very excited to be here today with three of the actors who are nominated at the SAG Awards for Female Actor in a Miniseries or Television Movie. Please welcome from the Great Lillian Hall, Kathy Bates. From Baby Reindeer, Jessica Gunning. And from The Penguin, Cristin Milioti. Thank you all so much for being here. You are speaking to an audience of your fellow actors, so I actually would love to start by asking if there was a particular actor or performance that might have inspired you or spoke to you when you were becoming an actor or growing up.
It's hard to distill down to one, but I can think of like a couple that were deeply seminal in terms of like when you would watch them perform, you'd want to like jump up onto the screen with them. That feeling like that you're like you get like itchy inside. And I felt like that with Frances McDormand in Fargo, which I saw when I was like way too young, but I remember being like really awestruck by her performance. Uma Thurman in Kill Bill. That was like I saw that movie when I was 17 or 18, and I remember being like, I didn't know someone could do like a character could go on a journey like what she goes through from volume 1 to volume 2. And also like I've said this in other interviews too, I was a real big Michael Keaton fan. Like I really liked that he could like go from playing Batman to Beetlejuice to Multiplicity. Like I just sort of really dug it all.
How cool, mentioning Fargo. As an actor, I think it must be so amazing that at some point you get to be part of the Fargo universe or the
Cool.
Batman universe.
I'm very, it's pretty like wild and cool and profound. And yeah, it's very special.
Jessica, for you?
For me, not to sound too sycophantic, but it's genuinely is Kathy, and Misery was a huge inspiration to me when I was growing up, and also I just think you're in general one of the best actors ever created. And also Elizabeth Taylor in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. I used to.
There we go.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah. And so I think people who can transform as well. When you were saying earlier about Michael, I was thinking about Robin Williams. For me, I always used to just be really moved by his performances, but also found the humor and comedy aspect of him so beautiful. So people like that you just watch and you think, wow, incredible. How do you do what you do? And it's amazing.
I know you're not being a sycophant because I've heard you say in interviews before that her performance in Misery was I don't know if I want to say inspiration, but helped you sort of with Martha in Baby Reindeer.
Yeah, I think how Kathy played that character is so nuanced and complicated, and I think that I say all the time whenever I talk about when I auditioned for Baby Reindeer, I was so panicked about the idea of somebody getting the part and playing her as crazy or as a villain, and I think that that's what Kathy did so beautifully in Misery, that you find the heart and the human in that, and you never would view that person as a villain or anything, because as soon as you do, you ruin the writing and the creation of it. So I was always really a champion for her being a full layered, nuanced person and not just one tone of baddie or villain, because I never saw her as that myself. Yeah,
absolutely. Kathy, for you?
Yes. Well, I just wanted to respond to what Jessica's saying. Two things. I remember when I was in school, they had a record of Virginia Woolf. And I had not seen the film, but I remember going to the library and playing the first 8 minutes of that film when they're coming home from the party. And just all I could see was the orchestration of the voices. And it was, I remember listening to that. It was so, Mike Nichols directed it, and it was operatic, and the characters just jumped out of the grooves of the record, But I also wanted to respond to something Jessica said just now, because I watched your performance, and I also watched Cristin's performance. I binged both of your guys' series. They're just amazing. And congratulations to both of you. But Jessica, one of the things that I noticed when you were saying about making her a normal person, when I compare that performance in Misery to what I saw in yours, that was one of the things that I noticed, was that you were a whole human being. Mm-hmm. There wasn't anything crazy about her. It was just who she was and how she put herself out there. And I mean, the stalker aspect of it, of course, but she was a real person. And so I think that was wonderful about your performance.
Yeah. Cristin and Jessica, are you freaking out a little bit right now, just knowing Kathy Bates watched your shows?
Freaking out what?
Freaking out that you watch their shows.
Oh, well, of course. I mean, I couldn't stop. Your characters, I mean, you go through a whole series, which, it's kind of strange to be in this category with you, actually, because you and both of you and many of the other actresses that are in this category are actually in a series. And I have maybe 20 minutes in a little indie movie as a supporting actress. So I don't really feel like I'm on the same playing field that you guys are on. But it's an honor to be here with you, because I think the work is so deft and subtle. And I mean, even with all the power of Martha, there still is so much subtlety in all of the music of her, and realness. And for you, Cristin, I'm happy to meet you here. Your simplicity and your focus and your stillness, except if for that, what was it, episode 4, when they showed her background? Was it Jindani? Is that the one that?
Oh my God, Kathy!
Oh my God! It was heartbreaking. It's just to see you have that whole episode to flesh out the whole character. It was just phenomenal work. It really was. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. That's
go ahead. Sorry.
People to hear from you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You are all playing remarkable women, and Cristin and Jessica, it's so funny because you're playing characters who aren't necessarily quote unquote likable, but you do humanize them. It seems like the people you were working with understood your characters, but have you ever had to sort of fight to humanize a character like that, or or even with yourself to sometimes find something in them that makes it interesting for you to play?
I mean, I was our showrunner, Lauren LaFranc, I can't sing her praises enough. And I always felt very in tune with her. And we both are obsessed with this character. When I think of things I've had to fight for, it was years ago having to fight about this isn't how a human woman would speak. It was more of that. It was never so much, or it was and it was fighting for the character who I love everyone I've played. And there is that thing that Jessica, you were talking about of when you're but I have to protect them. That's sort of possession that comes over you. But I didn't ever feel, I don't know, that's what comes to mind in terms of things I've fought for. I mean, there's always things on every project that you push for, that you want to protect, or that you want to preserve. But I mean, I gotta say, by the time we were really off to the races with Penguin, I felt Lauren really trusted me, and I really trusted her, and I was sort of I was shocked that on a sort of like franchise type thing, I was given like pretty free reign, which I didn't expect.
And I would just have to say for the record, I don't think Sophia is a villain. I think she's the hero of the whole show.
I agree. I didn't know, I didn't know who was going to win.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, I was thrilled that you get this letter from who is this woman, Selena Kiley, and I was thinking, okay, was she one of the Marvel characters that
She's
is?
Catwoman.
Oh,
Catwoman.
yeah. Catwoman.
She's what?
She's Catwoman.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you guys going to come back?
I hope so.
Oh God, it would be so great.
I would love nothing more. I mean, I had the time of my life.
I bet. I had the pleasure of working with Colin many, many, many years ago. I mean, before people knew who he was.
Okay.
And so it was so great. I mean, I couldn't recognize him.
Yeah. He's extraordinary. And as you know, like to know him and work with him is to love with him. He's utterly delightful. And
I know, he's wonderful.
He's just so wonderful. And I was so grateful for that as well, that like I had a partner who was so game and like fun and incredibly talented, yes, but also like kind and goofy and silly and like just lovely.
Yeah, his whole family is.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kathy, I'm blanking. What did you do with Colin?
Oh, it's a movie called American Outlaws.
Oh, cool.
And it's about, the Jesse James group and everything. But it just, let's just say it didn't turn out very well. But he came to the Matlock set with Margaret Robbie, and they said hello, and it had been umpteen years since I'd seen him, and he's just so full of energy and excitement. He's such a wonderful human being, and loves his family so much, and his son, who I know is handicapped, and he's done so much to help that cause. But he was wonderful because everybody was talking about the makeup, but you didn't notice the makeup.
No,
he was just a different person.
Yeah.
It was a phenomenal performance. Well, everyone was wonderful, but can I ask you guys both a question? So in both your cases, how much time in advance did you have for rehearsals and did you have all of the episodes in hand when you started the series? I mean, did you have an arc? Did you know it? Did you have each script in front of you?
I've worked on so many things where nowadays I've only had a couple of episodes before you get, and they're right as they go along. So the luxury of Baby Reindeer was that we had all 7 episodes to read. Well, I did before my first audition. So I got the whole arc, that beautiful ending with the barman and everything, that final voicemail that for me unlocks kind of who she is. I already knew that before my first audition. And then over the space of 4 months, I auditioned about 5 times for the part because there were so many back and forths, as things are nowadays with, people getting approval. And there was things like the age gap between them at first. They were wondering whether we read as different age, a big enough age gap. But luckily I wore them down in the end. No, but I think that, over the space of that time, there was about 4 months that passed and we didn't have much time for rehearsal. But in each of those auditions, Richard and I would kind of chemistry read throughout. So that kind of felt like a semi-rehearsal in a sense. But we didn't get any pre-filming rehearsals.
You didn't?
No.
Oh my God. What about you, Cristin?
Oh, we got no rehearsal, which was terrifying.
Oh my God. That's what happens all the time. Sorry to interrupt.
No, but I mean, we had no rehearsal, and when I signed on, I only had the first episode, and I had this I tested with Colin, and it was that scene at the end of episode 1 where I'm torturing him, which is like such an insane scene to do on like the Warner Brothers lot for 50 people. And Colin's like just looking like Colin, like in an office chair. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like waving my hand around like a gun. It was humiliating. But then I got whatever I signed on. And then I think I had 3 months with the first 4. But Lauren was like she was telling me like what would happen, but I had those first 4. So I could work backwards from 4. And And then I think got the last four as we were shooting, but no, we never got rehearsal, which, and it is so flummoxing to me that is the norm. It's
Money.
Mhm.
They don't want to, anyway, don't get me started. I mean, it's this thing that I've always felt coming along, coming from theater way back in the 80s and 90s, and then coming out here really when I was in my middle ages. And to me, it seemed like as though we're filming something that's not ready to be photographed.
Yeah.
But now we've all gotten used to working so fast. Yeah. Then they think, oh, they can do it, So, but I do think it's a credit to your performances that you. I mean, I expected that you would have had at least a couple of months and working on it, But anyway, kudos.
Kathy, for you, I mean, the Great Lillian Hall is in many ways about theater, about rehearsal, and about actors. And you have such amazing chemistry with Jessica Lange. Did you guys have time to rehearse? And was that chemistry like right there from the start?
Yeah, well, we've known each other for umpteen years. We met back in, I think it was 85. We did a movie called Men Don't Leave, which she's wonderful in. I mean, honestly, I was very, very surprised to get this nomination because I'm literally on screen maybe 20 minutes. The movie is all about her. It's loosely based on an actress by the name of Marion Seldes, who did have a reputation for never missing a performance in New York. And it's about her sliding into dementia. But it was written by her daughter, but then Michael Christopher took over and created it. He's a wonderful playwright and director of years and years. He won the Pulitzer for a play he wrote called Shadowbox. And but with Jessica, I mean, I really feel that she should be the one in this category because the acclaim that she got from playing this woman, this older actress who's sliding into dementia, and Lily Rabe, who plays her daughter, absolutely brilliant. So the preparation, I think Jessica didn't like to rehearse that much on this one because of the dementia. She had her own sort of secret process that I wasn't able to penetrate. And for me, I was sort of kind of doing a Thelma Ritter homage from All About Eve, at this woman from New Jersey who's been at her side for years and years. But so that was our preparation, I guess, was our relationship. I think, our closeness, which was good. I think Streep was originally interested in it and then she couldn't do it. And so that would have been a very different experience for me because I don't know her as well.
Wow. And Cristin and Jessica, you mentioned the audition process. Kathy, I'm going to guess that you didn't audition for the Great Lillian Hall.
No, I didn't. So, yeah.
But I'm sure you have many experiences with the audition process. For each of you, what's that sort of been like? Have you made your peace with it? I know some actors actually really like it because they feel like they're auditioning the people they're involved with.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think after lockdown, a lot of my actor friends now say that quite a lot of auditioning happens via self-tape and Zoom, and you don't get to go in the room. But we were really lucky with Baby Reindeer to actually physically be in the room together. And I think you can tell a lot by a director or by your co-stars. I think it's quite important to have that kind of back and forth. Whereas like now, maybe with younger actors up and coming and starting out, the idea of self-tape is a bit strange maybe because it assumes, there's not a conversation really. It's just an isolated thing. Whereas I think you can tell a lot from those meetings. I quite enjoy them, actually. I think you can learn a lot from meeting the team behind it. I definitely did with Richard and Baby Reindeer anyway, yeah.
I agree. Like I like the security it gives you when you get it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
What I'm going to do. Like I like entering a set with that feeling. Like,
yeah.
Like you saw what my plan is, and we can discuss it. But there's like, it's not gonna. I'm not. I sometimes the instances where I've been offered something and shown up, the anxiety I have for that first week or so is like, well, this is what I am. This is my idea. But also auditions are insane as well. Like I feel like anytime I go into one, I have to do so many mind games with myself, and there's so much like mumbling in my apartment to like offset the amount of like shame and embarrassment that like threatens to drown me. And then you go in there. I mean, it's just, they're crazy. They're crazy. Like, and they can be great. And they can also be like auditioning the other people and like experimenting, whatever. But yeah, they're nuts.
Over in LA, especially, I remember years ago, I did a pilot for ABC for NBC. And so I was, for the first time, thrust over and doing all of the kind of cinema seating, people coming, 50 people filing in. That is not like what it is over here, but that was so crazy. That whole experience of it just was terrifying. I was like, how does anyone do this all the time? Yeah,
And
whole new world.
I don't know. I was up for something years ago where they were trying to, it was between like 6 of us and we were all there and they just
Yeah,
kept,
everyone knows. Yeah, yeah.
and like, so we all sat in this like
Oh God.
day and like everyone there was lovely, but I was like, this is so cruel.
Yeah.
How are we supposed to do what we would do on the set? I mean, I guess it's like an audition for what a pressure cooker is like, but like other than that, it was so weird. And everyone was lovely too. But it was, you know, I've also met some of my closest friends in audition rooms. Like,
Oh my God.
like some of my closest girlfriends, we all met in auditions for theater in New York in our early 20s. And they are, to this day, we're who each other calls when we're in a shame tornado or we're on a set and it's not going well. And like, if I feel so much for people who are coming up now and are in the sort of lonely universe of a self-tape, because like it's where I learned so much in those rooms.
Or did you start out in theater, Cristin?
I started in theater.
What
Yeah.
what did you do there? Because I haven't read about your career.
I did a lot of off-Broadway stuff. I did a lot of stuff with, do you know Ivo Van Hove? Do you know him? He's that director. He was like, I did a couple things with him and he felt sort of like school. And then I did this long-running musical called Once that was based on the movie.
She's a Tony nominee for Once. She's being
What's his name again?
Oh, Ivo Van Hove.
Oh yes, yes.
I worked with him a bit, and then I did this long-running musical, and then I've done a couple things here and there since, but I'm like dying to get back.
I bet.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I was terrible at auditioning when I started out. I mean, just awful. I couldn't get it, you know. And then way back in those days, if you went to audition for a company, like I worked was the Actors Theater of Louisville, or if you were trying to get into I can't remember the name of the acting company in DC, and Arena Stage, I think they called it. And you used to have to go in and do 2 or 3 monologues. One was, you know, just a regular play. One was either Shakespeare or something like that. And it was just, it was just the worst. And I was never able to make that work. But now, you know, I mean, in the last bunch of years, I haven't had to audition. But now with Matlock, I've done chemistry reads. Mm-hmm. And then I just feel like, oh God, you know, because there's like 4 or 5 people that come in and I think, oh God, you know, if I have the power to say, no, I don't think this person is right or whatever, it just kind of makes me feel, you know, because it's, you know, you're going to change someone's life. Yeah. And it's a tremendous amount of responsibility. So anyway.
I always worry I'll say the wrong thing, like see you soon, and then they go, she said see you soon, and you're like, no, I meant like, you know, and you just think you worry about everything. Yeah.
Well, sometimes those chemistry reads, I've been on the other side like a few times, and I found them to be, they made me sick with worry, but they also gave me a weird comfort where I was like, oh, it is kind of meant for who it's meant for. Like I would see so many people come in and be so brilliant, and I would be like, and yet there's something that doesn't quite like. It gave like a weird calm of like, oh, you either are that person in some way or it's meant for, I don't know. It was like, made it like a little more spiritual or something. I don't know.
Oh, well, good for you. I mean that because there were, you know, a couple of instances where I really felt strongly about one actor. And then, you know, our wonderful creator, Jenny Erman, felt very strongly, but obviously I deferred to her, you know, because that's her show and how she's feeling about everything. But anyway, auditions.
Yeah, they're crazy. They're crazy.
Well, Kathy, as a director too, you've probably had to audition or work with actors. What's it like being on the other side?
Um, I liked that part of it better. I remember I cast Rainn Wilson in 6 Feet Under, and so it was sort of part of his beginning, and finding actors like that is kind of a wonderful thing. And the thing I loved most, I mean, it's been many years since I directed, but the thing I loved the most about directing actors was I used to sit underneath the camera and not be back at Video Village, so that I could really be there. A young actress named, Lauren Ambrose was, I don't know, she was 17 or 18 or something like that. She was starting out. So it was great to be right there, like 2 or 3 feet away from her, and just be there to coach her through. She's brilliant. And so I loved working with the actors. That was my favorite part of it.
You've all actually worked with fantastic directors, and I'm curious what you sort of hope for from a director when you show up for sets. And I think you can learn a lot from great directors, and maybe you can learn a lot from directors who aren't so great. Things that you don't want to do. What are some of the lessons you've all taken away?
I mean, I was
relationship. I think. Sorry.
No,
I was going to say the director of Baby Reindeer, Veronica, she and I ended up having a real shorthand and a kind of just a silence between us, where I would sometimes just know what the note was going to be, and I think that's quite rare. But when you get it, it feels so special, and especially with a project like Baby Reindeer, where we have to just make sure the tone is so right and we're translating what Richard wants so clearly. And she was such a great kind of third person to be part of that partnership, because it was so important to get that balance right, and not translate what he wanted, but I suppose convert how he felt about something. We would have our own little language to kind of think, how can we do that without, from the inside out instead, and so we suddenly had this shorthand that I've not really had with many directors, but when that happens, it does feel really special. But yeah, sorry, I interrupted.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, and this is like seemingly obvious, but like there is such a huge difference between the directors who really care as much as you do. Even if you don't see eye to eye, it's like actually thrilling. And then, sometimes you have people who come in and they're a cog in a wheel a cog in a machine that's like already going, and they're dealing with 1,000 fires and all these things. But like when someone gets in there with you, I also love being directed by other actors too.
Yeah.
Hearing you talk about it. One of the directors for Penguin is Helen Shaver.
No.
She did episodes 4 and 5, and she was like, and I loved all of our directors, but it was so incredible. Someone who understood the process too, of like what you have to do on a set and what you have to do in those like very intense scenes, and like the space that you need and the support that you need, and also like the weirdness, ephemeralness of it. It was so thrilling. And she would do the same thing. She would sit by the camera, and it was thrilling. Like I just loved it. It felt like you were making theater, or that you were like at summer camp. It didn't feel like you were making, that there were like millions of dollars on the line or whatever.
Yeah. For me, I remember when I actually had the opportunity to direct for the first time. We were shooting primary colors with Mike Nichols, God rest him. And when we had a break, I was getting ready to go and do this little piece for Great Performances. I'd never done it before. I never directed before. And so I caught him outside and I said, so Mike, what, as actors, we're trained. It's like a dog trained not to get up on the sofa. You're never supposed to tell other actors what to do. Yeah. But I never forgot what he told me. I said, how do you work with actors? And he just said, love them.
Yeah.
Just love them. Just love them. And that's what I like, is the way you both described it, is the people that are going to really get in there with you and who really speak your same language. Otherwise, I feel like I'm a little space capsule out in space, and Video Village is Houston, and it's harder to make that connection. I mean, I do, and I really depend on it. And because I've worked for so long and people really respect me and all that, I always say to them, man, you got to direct me.
Yeah.
They say, yeah, but you've won all this. And I said, yeah, but it was for that role.
Right.
Not this one. So you really got to get in there and work on it. And because you want to transform, you want to become another human being. And you need that. You need that help to do that.
Yeah. And the love part of it, like actually when you first asked the question, my instinct was to be like, the directors that love actors are you can really tell, and that sounds like such an actor thing to say too, but like some directors I think are more sort of visual and think in and then there are other directors who are like really involved in like lifting.
And there's some directors that see actors as other, like almost like alien. They're like, do that weird thing you do, off you go. And it's like, no, try and get it and understand. And that's when it's perfect, I think. Yeah.
I want a quick question too. Did I read somewhere that you had a movement coach, Cristin?
Yeah, I worked with a movement coach. Yes, I did.
And what made you do that?
I just wanted to see what it did. And I had a lot of ideas about this character and how she would be physically, because I knew there was a lot of like physical elements coming up with it. And I think that was like my attempt at rehearsing on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as I come from used to so many weeks, and I knew that wasn't available here. And so I was like, I want to work with someone who can like help me rehearse with myself or something, and like, find things that you would normally find in 4 weeks in a room. And I was also, like really scared.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I was terrified when I went back to do because we had done the pilot for Matlock, and then we came back, months and months later to do the next, the second episode. So I was worried about that. But, in terms of the movement coach, it's interesting because I can see the transition from, who she is very still at the very beginning, Sophia, and then the craziness in episode 4. But also, I did a film called Dolores Claiborne, and we were talking about directors. Taylor Hacker directed that, and he's married to Helen Mirren. Yeah. He knows what goes into her performance. And it was the only film really that I had months to prepare for it because I was doing a Maine accent. I was playing a woman in her 40s and then in her 60s. So I found a movement coach, but all of that was through Taylor. I remember sitting down at lunch with him, and he says, "What do you need?
Yeah, God.
What do you need to do this part?" And so we found the best makeup artists at the time, Luigi Rocchetti and Aldo Signoretti for the wigs and stuff, and Liz Himmelstein, who did the Maine accent. Although Stephen King said, "Oh no, I've heard so many bad accents from Maine." I said, "Yeah, but it was a novella," and I said, "You've written it in her voice," and so I needed all of those elements to bring together a woman who was young-ish, and then how she was damaged and from a hard life, then going, because we knew he knew we were going to cut back and forth, between those 2 time frames. So to be able to create that in a believable way, and even just, as you get older, which you will discover, there's a slightness, it's easier to because you've worked with things all of your life, whether it's cooking or whatever, there's a sleight of hand. Things come easier as you're older when you're cooking or you're doing this because you've done it so many million times that you haven't done when you're younger. So we wanted to show that whenever she was at the stove or how she handles her plate or, all of that kind of stuff. And then it became intuitive, which was a wonderful feeling.
Wow. I love all of that attention to detail. I remember I did a series over here for the BBC called White Heat years ago. And on the set, the door, it was about 7 flatmates who lived together. And you saw us from when we were 17 all the way up to our 60s. And we played the characters till we were in our 40s and then handed the baton over to some older actors who played them in the 60s. So it was great. And it was a really great project with amazing people. Like Claire Foy was in it. It was lovely. But the door to the flat was really stiff. And the director was like, everyone has got to practice this like 10 times a day because you will have gone through that door all of your life and it would be second nature. We can't be opening it as if it's the first time. And so all of that, I love that attention to detail. Yeah. The muscle memory of knowing what the knack is with the door, all of us understanding that. And I think I just love that kind of thing. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry to jump in again, Jenelle. You know me when I get into one of these. Cristin, you mentioned something, and Jessica, I want you to weigh in on this too, about the fear. You know, I've been very open about being afraid when I started out, the tremendous responsibility that you feel. How do you overcome that, both of you?
I honestly, I call those girls that I met in audition rooms
because really,
yes, we're all actors. We all and I mean, I have my own, I'm in like therapy too. I'm like, it's all guns firing, but like, but I do have a support system that I'm able to call like, hey, I think I'm going to get fired, and they call me too, and we're all like, just so you know, every first week you feel like you're going to get fired. Like, do you know? Because it's so hard to describe to people who don't do it, and it is like such a leap of faith, and it's so vulnerable, and each job is so different than the last, and so like I feel like I really, and it's a little easier. Like the older I get, the more I am able to be like, okay, I guess this is part of how you start every job, is that you are convinced you are the worst one on set and that you're going to get fired and that everyone is whispering about what a bad actor you are. And if that's like what you have to do for the first 2 weeks, that sucks, I guess. But like, oh well, like, I don't know, like you get like, but I do really lean on that support system a lot.
What about you, Jessica?
Yeah, I was actually thinking a similar thing because I think previously, before Baby Reindeer, I'm not sure how scared I would get, but because I suppose the parts I got, not that they weren't challenging at all, but they weren't like Martha. And then I think everything shifted when I got that script through, and it's the first thing I've properly kind of fought for. And there's an embarrassment to that once you get the part in a way, because you feel very vulnerable and exposed. One of the occasions I'd kind of self-taped. There was like a question about my age, like I said earlier, and I'd got a friend of mine who actually won an Oscar for the makeup and hair design on Poor Things, and she wigged me up to try and help, like show the people who were maybe unsure that look, I can look a bit older and see, because she was like, this is what I would do is if I was designing the show. And so I was really going all guns blazing, going, please trust me with this. And it's out of character a little bit for me to do that. Usually I would kind of do my thing in the audition and leave and go, what will be will be. But for some reason I just was like, if please, I think I know how to do this. And so when eventually the offer did come through, then I was terrified because I'd fought so hard, and then suddenly was like, oh crap, now I've got to do it. And so actually I went for dinner with two of my friends who were both actors, and they were like, the fear now could make you, not that I would ever phone this in, but could make you play it safe, hit all those marks and not risk because you're nervous to fail or get it wrong a bit or try something new and be brave. And actually their kind of pep talk meant that I did risk a lot more, and I would allow myself to kind of go there, not to sound too cheesy, but really be vulnerable and give something of myself. Whereas maybe if I hadn't had that backing from them, I would have played it safe because I was like, well, I've got it now, so I just need to kind of tick the boxes, So thank goodness I chatted to them, because I really felt like, I leapt off, a bit and went for it. And I think that support network of people who've been there as well themselves is so special. Yeah. And
yeah. It's terrifying. I remember you're lucky that you had your friends to talk to, although I was lucky that I have this wonderful young woman that I met actually on Matlock the first time. And she had seen Dune, I'd read the Dune books, and I found the sort of, I don't know, the passage about fear being the little death or whatever it's called. Mind killer. That's right. And I said, Erica, I said, this is crazy. Maybe this is kind of the way to jump off. It's like, okay, I'll take anything. She made me on cardstock, this saying in red ink, that I could put in the beginning of all of my scripts, and and all of it really, all of that was just an exercise, to focus on that. Yeah. I remember years and years ago doing my first speaking role in a film with Dustin Hoffman, and I was. We're doing a dinner scene. Everything was fine until the camera came on to me, and suddenly I was like this. And I said, I'm freaking out here. And he said, can you hear Owen setting up the shot? Owen Roy's an amazing cinematographer. And I said, no. He said, well, listen. And so I started focusing on, what was going on around me and stuff. And the minute I relaxed, he said, "That's it."
Wow.
And he's such an actor. I mean, he's been so passionate about it all of his life. And so it was so helpful. I mean, it was that thing that I mentioned before, Jenelle, I think in the other thing that we did for Matlock was that, in theater training, what we learned was that Stanislavski said that the secret to an actor's creativity is the object of his concentration. Mm. So if I'm dealing with a particular prop, if I'm focusing on the other actor, because you can only think about one thing at once, at a time. And so that if you're really focused on the other person, if you've done all your work and then you jump off, then you're focusing on the other person. I'm sure that you felt this way, Cristin, when you were working with Colin.
I mean, and those are my favorite moments is when everything melts away and you can listen. I mean, that's like the thing that we all chase or something, when some holy ghost enters the space and something happens that could only happen in that moment with that person. And you are like, yeah.
Wasn't the first scene that you did was in where you guys were having martinis?
That's the first scene we ever did. Yeah.
Wow.
Terrifying.
And why did they do that to us?
Why did they do that?
It's always like the hardest scene for us.
We shot a lot on a soundstage for that show, and that was the first day of filming on the New York street, and there were, I am not kidding you, like 200 photographers. I'd never seen anything like it outside of the window. And so you'd be in the scene and then you'd turn and it was like like,
oh my God.
And crowds of people, and it was like the worst trial by fire first day with like 400 extras. We're in this like giant New York restaurant. It was crazy.
So they were like fan photographers outside.
It's like paparazzi because they wanted to see. It was like the first look at his makeup, and there were just like fans who heard there was a Batman thing. Then there were just like tourists who were like, "What's going on over there?"
Oh my God. Oh my God. Well, you look like you've been doing it forever though. And that scene, you looked so, but also that scene lent itself to kind of figuring out who he was.
Yes.
And so it gave you a little bit of, ledge there.
Lock in. And like, you've worked with him too. He's also an actor's actor. Like you really, once you're in it together, you're in it. There's no like,
you got to go. I wanted to ask you, Jessica, because this was a play before, and he actually performed in the play, right?
Yeah,
right? But you were not in the play.
No, it was one. I actually never saw the play, and I'm really glad I didn't. Weirdly, I read the play text when it first came out and then kind of forgot about it, but I was really intrigued. But I think from what I can tell, a stool kind of symbolized Martha, but he would do a slight impression of her when she spoke. And then there was a recording of the voice messages that was by an actress that he'd used to kind of have this cacophony of sound like swirling around. But a stool, an empty stool kind of represented show version.
So you just got to create this for yourself then. What was what do you remember? What was the first scene that you guys did?
We actually filmed a scene that's in episode 4, I think, or 5, where she shows up at his house and pretends to be part of the cooking group. That was.
Oh my God, that seems.
Yeah. So, hello, That was the kind of like in at the deep end feeling. Yeah, I love it when you can. But the favorite thing is the final scene. I felt like my last day was the last scene in the courtroom. So that always feels nice, a nice way to end things when it is the final scene. I don't know, it would just by chance happen to be that day. But I quite enjoy things being as much in order as they can be. But obviously, we never get that luxury, do we? It's all over the shop. Yeah.
Well, I know the scene where you just launch yourself off across the bar, to get at him. Where were you in your shooting schedule?
That was great because that was towards the end as well. So
thank God. Okay.
If that was one of the, I know, gosh, yeah, I wouldn't have had to do it. Yeah.
I'm so sorry that we're out of time because I could listen to this all day.
This was a good one. It was so great to hear. Yeah. I loved hearing from all you guys. And again, you just, you've inspired me.
I love that. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
What a
you.
fun-
Dream
it
come
was
true. Yeah.
so-
So much.
both
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah.
Amazing.